Hello. This is where I work now. I have taken a job as the night shift desk clerk for a hotel. I work from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m., which is something that I've never done before. Over the past couple of days, I've been sort of working my way towards staying up all night long and going to bed in the morning. I started by staying up until about 6 a.m., and this morning I stayed up until 7:30 a.m., this morning being Saturday, the 3rd of January. And as I'm now working, I'll be ending my shift at 7 a.m. and getting home around 8:30, and going to bed pretty much right away once I do that. Yeah, I've never done this before, so it'll be an adventure. Of course, this job I only have 3 days a week, so I'm going to have to get another job with the same shift hours, so that I'm not like working days on part of the week and nights on the other part of the week. I need to work nights like all the time, or days all the time. That's the only way I can keep a steady sleep schedule. And the way I have it sort of worked out, I'd be going to sleep pretty much, after I finish work, and then waking up around 2 or 3 in the afternoon, and then having my sort of the free part of my day before I'm on again at 11. So yeah, something of a new experience for me. I haven't made a video in a couple of weeks. The last one I did was on the movies I'm most looking forward to seeing this year. And of course I need to do a best of 2014 movies list, but of course I've been skipping a lot of movies to save money because I haven't been working. And so I've missed out on a bunch of stuff. But even if I'd gone to see everything I wanted to see in the theater, there's still a number of movies that never made it to the theater here in Chicago that I need to check out at some point. One of which was Coherence, which my friend Jack saw just the other night and was talking to me about it. I'm like, don't say nothing, man. I want to see it for myself and not know what it is. And he compared it to another movie, so I'm like, okay, great, well, I like that movie a lot, so we'll see. Now, some of you have left me comments talking about how much you want to hear me do a review of Gone Girl, which of course is directed by David Fincher, my current favorite filmmaker. And I saw this movie on its opening weekend, and then I finally got around to seeing it a second time about 2 months later, beginning of December. And I had two fairly different reactions to it. My first reaction was, you have basically a storyline that's split, that goes back and forth between two characters. If you're familiar with the movie, you know which characters I'm talking about. If you haven't, I'm not going to say who they are exactly, but one of them is Ben Affleck. So let's say you've got character A, and then you go to character B, and then you go back to character A, and you go back to character B again throughout the course of the story. And I was very, very torn the first time I saw that movie, because I found myself rooting for whoever was on screen at the moment. I was just like, oh, character A is in some trouble. I hope they get out of this jam. And then I go over to character B, it's like, oh, character B is in some trouble. I hope that person gets out of this jam. And and despite the fact that one or perhaps both of the characters have done something very bad, I kept sort of rooting for them to pull through and come out well on the other side. So I don't know how to account for that. But when I saw it the second time, of course, it sort of had clearly in mind in advance which character was sort of in the wrong and which character was, subjectively speaking anyway, in the right. And so my loyalties were not torn the way they were in that first viewing. Of course, I'd taken a lot of time to read about the movie and watch other people's videos in the meantime. But it's another, I was reminded of The Social Network because it took me a little while to get used to the idea of The Social Network being a David Fincher film. It was different from a lot of the other ones that he's done. Although the way certain shot compositions work, it was the first film that Fincher had used with those particular editors, and also with Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross doing the score. But in that movie and Girl with the Dragon Tattoo and the new movie, he is again using Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross to compose the score, and again the same editors. And despite this, And with Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, I was very sort of used to his style, because I'd seen The Social Network a number of times at that point. So I really enjoy The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. I think that's a fine film, and one that I enjoy watching repeatedly. Gone Girl has a different feel to it some of the time. There are a few sequences which really stand out as being Fincher-like, at least current Fincher-like, you know, just the way certain sequences are edited. Again, not to give too much away if you haven't seen the movie, but there's a sequence about the midpoint of the movie where we see a character put an elaborate plan into effect and go through all this work to execute this plan. And that's cut very much like certain sequences in The Social Network and The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, and it was very fun for me. But for the most part, I wasn't really thinking about Fincher. I was just sort of involved in the story, and I guess that's a good thing. But sometimes I feel like I've sort of like missed the opportunity to appreciate David Fincher's work if I'm not actively thinking about David Fincher directing whatever it is that I'm watching at the moment. So once I get the DVD, then I'll be able to rewatch individual scenes to my heart's content and go, yeah, love him, love him, love him. He's so great. Don't know what he'll be doing next, but this is not, at this point it's not one of my favorite movies, but it is a movie that I liked enough to put it in a very high position on my top 10 list, which I have not finalized yet. Because, like I said, there's still a few movies that I have yet to see. However, the issue for me here is not just putting a sequence of movies together in which the one higher on the list is slightly better than the one below it, because that's very difficult for me, because if the movies are different from each other. The problem is that there have been a number of movies that I've really liked this year, but none that I can say that I really love. You know, I mean, take 2010 for example. Loved Inception, loved Toy Story 3. They were amazing movies, you know? And I haven't felt that strongly about anything that I've seen this year, or last year, for example, for that matter. I mean, last year we had, my favorite movie of the year was Before Sunset, but that was sort of like a wussy position to take, because I was anticipating that movie being, you know, as good as the other movies in that series by Richard Linklater. But there weren't any big surprises for me. The big surprise for me, I think, last year was the new Neil LaBute film with Stanley Tucci and Alice Eve called Some Velvet Morning. I had no idea what to expect from that movie, except I like Neil LaBute a lot, and that movie just like completely, you know, surprised me in certain places, so I was very pleased by that. I rewatched that a couple of weeks ago. I rented the disc almost like a full year after I'd first seen it. So yeah, that was exciting. But again, not a lot of surprises and not a lot of films that I could say, oh my goodness, that was so great, everybody has to see this movie. I just haven't felt that way a lot. Some of the movies I'm definitely think are going to appear on my list are Birdman by Alejandro Inarritu, and Boyhood by Richard Linklater, of course, and Under the Skin by Jonathan Glazer. That's the one where Scarlett Johansson plays an alien who's, you know, trapping men in Scotland. And think. Some movies got so much praise this year, and I really had a hard time understanding. Like Guardians of the Galaxy, for example. I'm not sure why people love that movie so much. People are calling it like the best movie of the year or something like that. I mean, like professional critics, like very respectable critics. I'm just like, come on, I mean, is it that great? I mean, it's fun, and, you know, the characters are fun for the most part. I don't know. Something about that movie, you know, it's just, I don't know, maybe it's the formula or something like that. Oh, the Lego Movie, I forgot to mention the Lego Movie. That's a really, really fun movie. Although I wonder whether or not it really has the same kind of impact that something like, say, Gone Girl does. That's the tough part, is like comparing these movies, like comparing the Lego Movie to Birdman, comparing the Lego Movie to Gone Girl, comparing Birdman to Gone Girl. It's just like, which one can you say is really better than the other, because they're so incredibly different from the other, you know? With Boyhood, it's not really hard to admire a movie like that, because it was such a long-term project, and so many things could have gone wrong over the course of 12 years that would have prevented them from finishing the movie in the first place. And it's not a movie that I love, which is why I wouldn't necessarily put it at number one, because I felt it had a few problems. But at the same time, I can't help but admire it, and there's a lot to really like about the movie as well as just a viewing experience. Here's the issue. A lot of people are going, Boyhood's the best movie of the year. And I just listened to a podcast recently, which there were like 4 critics talking about their favorite movies of the year, and 3 of them had Boyhood at number 1, which was quite surprising. But it's not just a matter of admiring the ambition of the project or the fact that they were actually able to make it. How is it as a viewing experience? Set aside, any sort of notions you have about the degree of difficulty of the film. How does it play for you just watching the thing? And for me, the experience of some of the scenes in Boyhood didn't work as well as other scenes, and so it's less great than a movie that didn't have problems like that. This is the problem with making a top 10 list, is that you end up with a whole bunch of movies that you really liked. So I end up looking for things that I didn't like in order to give them demerits, and the more demerits a movie has, the lower it comes on the list. I don't know, it's a silly thing, making a list like this in the first place. There's a few other movies, of course, that I've got on the lower half of the list, yeah, again, I haven't finalized that because I haven't seen everything. Recently, however, I did see Into the Woods, which I was very pleased by, because not only was it, I felt, a really good musical, but it was a huge nostalgia trip for me, because I was in that show my senior year of high school over 20 years ago, and I can't tell you the feelings that came flooding back to me when I was hearing those songs again. I realized that I'd been kind of humming or singing little bits of the music in the show for years without really realizing that it was from that show. I might have consciously been aware of it or something like that, but really it was quite an experience seeing that. And I actually rewatched the other Robert Marshall musical, 9, which I didn't like as much, mostly because I didn't find any of the songs in that show nearly as memorable as the ones in Into the Woods or Chicago, which is, of course, the Rob Marshall musical that won Best Picture in 2002. So 2 out of 3 really great musicals is not bad. He's done 3 musicals, and 2 of them are really great, so good on him for that. Also saw Foxcatcher recently. Very, very grim movie. A well-made movie, but a total bummer of an experience. And Nightcrawler with Jake Gyllenhaal, which was fun in a lot of ways. So anyway, once I don't know how many weeks or months it'll be before I get caught up on all the films that I want to see for 2014 before I can make a list like that and have it be really valid. But really, any of these top 10 lists that I do are limited just to the movies that I see. There's a whole bunch of movies that I don't even bother seeing or can't, or just they don't appeal to me for whatever reason. And if I saw all those movies, my list might look completely different, because I might be surprised by things that I wouldn't expect to like. But I've gotten pretty good at anticipating what movies I will like or won't like, and so I end up going to those movies and having a good time for the most part. Very few movies I see nowadays are ones that I don't like, And that's usually because something about the movie has disappointed me dramatically, like X-Men Days of Future Past, for example. Anyway, I don't know how often I'll be bringing my camera to work to do this kind of thing, but since there isn't a lot to do here, other than just wait for something to happen to deal with, I might end up bringing my camera along on a regular basis. I'm uploading a lot more in 2015. We shall see. We shall see. Anyway, like I said, once I get my best of 2014 list together, I will make that video and post it. I don't know how long it'll be, but it'll happen eventually. So that's something to look forward to if you're so inclined. In the meantime, thanks very much for watching, and of course, as always, below in the description, if you're watching this on YouTube, is a link to my Facebook page where you can offer comments and feedback and what have you. Because of Google+, I don't like the YouTube commenting system, so I'd say go there. Thanks.